The easiest way to take out any Town Hall 10 base without a doubt is with one of the two strongest witch armies. This video is going to focus on the variation that attacks bases with multi-target inferno towers. This attack strategy is relatively simple. What you're going to be doing is using your 4 level 7 lightning spells along with a level 4 earthquake to take out each multi-inferno. And then you're going to be dropping a line of witches behind your golems with your heroes to take out the base, using your remaining spells to poison the clan castle troops and support your witches. Pretty simple, right? Well, it is. But when putting your army together, there are 3 main questions you need to ask yourself, okay? The first main question is, do I need a wall wrecker to access most of the base? If you don't, like in one of these replays you're going to see, you're going to bring the siege barrack. And as far as what you put in the siege barrack, that's completely up to you. Just keep in mind where the base is going to be at when it pops. But anyways, if you do need access, then of course you're going to be using the wall wrecker. Now, the second question you need to ask is what you prefer your tanks to be. Do you want to bring 2 golems? Do you want to bring 1 golem with 2 healers to tank your witches on either flank? Or do you want to just bring the healers? It's really up to you, and whether the base has a lot of DPS on the flanks. And then the last question you need to ask is how many infernos you need to zap. Now this is an easy thing to determine. It's really how many multi-infernos are there. You're going to zap those out. And you're going to need 4 lightnings and a quake for each of them. Now if you are using 8 lightning, if you're zapping 2 multi-infernos, you won't have room for the rage, which can be helpful, but the witches don't really benefit a lot from it anyway. If a jump gives you a lot of value in a base, then you may want to consider that, especially if you opted to go with the siege barrack. The poison's really good for the single inferno, and honestly, if you have any doubt about what spells to bring, the freeze is always a good staple just to use as a filler. So for our first replay here, we're going to be hitting this base. Now, as you can see, we bring the siege barrack because if you look at this, the witches can reach everything in this base except for these multi-infernos, which we're going to zap out, the queen and the expo. But the important thing here is the queen can't actually reach anything outside the base, nor can the expo. So what we're going to do here is we're just pretty much going to spam our witches all along this side, and we're going to let our witches work along the outsides, and it's going to work out just fine. Now here, as far as the zap value goes, I have a little bit of a beef with Bo's spell placement, because he's going to put it kind of right on, not this wall, but the tile right next to it, closer to the inferno. And he puts it right there, instead of putting it next to this one. If he did that, he could have gotten the archer tower, but it doesn't really matter. The archer tower doesn't hold a lot of zap value as far as the witches go. So we'll go ahead and start this here, and we'll just zoom in here, and we'll see that he zaps out a wizard tower with both of the multi-infernos. And that's only going to leave 2 more wizard towers to deal with, okay? And the way he deals with those wizard towers is perfect, okay? So all he does is he simply uses his golems initially to tank those wizard towers, essentially taking them out of the mix completely. So once these witches have been going, and now we'll stop right here. So first of all, we see the use of the golems to take the wizard towers and the expos out of the equation completely. But unfortunately, we've got this random Tesla farm out here, which is just an absolute pain. So now, I don't just show off attacks here, I also show the mistakes. So at this point, his plan was to put his siege barrack on this side and his heroes down here. Unfortunately, he was a little too fixated on putting the siege barrack over here. What he could have done is switch it and put his heroes on this side, and then put his siege barrack on this side. Because what he has in the siege barracks are super minions. And the plan was to let the siege barrack and the witches take out a whole bunch of buildings, and then by then, hopefully, the closest thing would be the queen, so the super minions can take her out. But what happens is he puts a siege barrack here, and the Tesla locks on to that siege barrack. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, when the siege barrack takes damage, it lessens the amount of wizards that the siege barrack actually releases. But anyways, it still works out. Right, he hasn't dropped his heroes yet. Now he drops his heroes. which is a little late for my liking, but it still works out. The queen walks, which isn't ideal. So as you can see, this side's a little thin, and that side is going to die out. But on a base like this, all you really need is one of those flanks to survive. Okay, now I'll pause here. The addition of these super minions is really important here, because it makes queen walks much harder. They do a lot of damage on these long shots. But for witches, it doesn't really matter, because it's only 5 shots, and with all the skeletons in front, it pretty much gives them a bunch of decoys, so that they waste their first 5 shots. So do you remember when I said that the plan was to have the super minions come out and take out the queen? Well, notice the super minions have come out, and at this point the closest thing to them is not the queen, it's that cannon. Now remember, I said if you have a Tesla farm, it's good to put your heroes on the Tesla farm and let the siege barrack work the other side. If he would have done that, as you can see over here, all we have is this bomb tower and that cannon. With the help of the P.E.K.K.A. and all those extra wizards, those would be gone. And the closest thing to that siege barracks would indeed be the queen. So the minions would have had no problem coming in and taking out that queen. But at this point, as you can see, the right flank has died. But it doesn't really matter. All you really need is one of these flanks to remain strong. And that is what has happened over here. You have a bunch of witches over here with the queen, who have now decided to go inside, which makes this attack even more smooth. And all we have left are 5-point defenses and a mortar on the other side, which isn't enough to take out the witches that we have remaining in a very well planned and executed attack by Bo. So we have another attack by the same person, Bo, okay? And it's a Town Hall 11, but for the most part the defenses are very much like a Town Hall 10, except a lot of the point defenses are upgraded, plus it has that Grand Warden statue. So there's a lot of extra DPS via point defense. So what this means is that armies with more tanky units like Mass Dragons and P.E.K.K.A. Smash are going to be more difficult to use against this base, but he makes the smart decision to use Zap Witches. Now that being said, Bo does get the 3-star and with a Swag Queen ability, but he does make 2 significant mistakes that I want to point out. So let's get this replay started. And the first mistake has to do with Bo's zap value, okay? So far so good. He takes out the entire compartment, but then let's look at what he does with this compartment. And I'll freeze frame here so that you can see what the optimum spell placement would be. So remember, when using your lightning spells, you want to pick a tile, okay? And the tile we're going to pick here is the right corner of the multi-inferno. Okay, not the multi-inferno itself, the tile on the right side of it, the right corner. If you drop the lightnings on those, then you will be able to hit all those buildings, and we'll use the knight rule to confirm. Now for those of you who don't play chess, a knight can move 2 tiles in any direction, and then 1 tile in another, just like displayed here. So anything that a knight from the tile you're on can either land on or pass is going to get hit by the lightning, okay? So when we zoom in on this right corner of the Inferno, you can use the movement of a knight to land on or pass this Dark Elixir drill, this cannon, this mortar, and this air defense. But what Bo is going to do is put it more southwest, and he's going to prioritize getting the mortar and the cannon, and he's going to miss the Dark Elixir drill and the air defense. Now, does that result in a fail? No, it doesn't. But the problem with this is witches are very slow. And even if a building is not a defense that can hit witches like these 2 buildings, any building you leave behind for the witches to have to backtrack to is going to add time to your raid and make it more likely you're going to time fail. So there is Bo's spell placement there. Now let's freeze frame here and look at the second mistake. Now this placement of the golems is adequate, okay? The golem on the right is going to tank the wizard tower, but the golem on the left is only going to tank 1 or 2 additional defenses. Now, if you look over here, you see the wizard tower over there, and if you put the golem on that cannon, the wizard tower would be able to reach it. And because he doesn't do this, he's going to drop witches over there, and what's going to happen is the wizard tower is going to kill the skeletons too fast for the witches to keep up. And as a result, all those point defenses around it are going to kill 2 witches unnecessarily. So we're hitting play here, and as you can see, now those golems are getting good tanking, okay, for the most part. But again, it could have been a little bit better. Now, unfortunately, the golem wouldn't have tanked the wizard tower until the Tesla went down. But as you're going to see, a bunch of these witches on the left here are going to die. But at this point, it doesn't matter. This person foolishly put an Electro Dragon and Loon in the CC, which is only really useful for killing bowler bombs and pretty much nothing else. But anyways, witches especially are really effective for dealing with that. But at this point, this raid is already over, okay? The flank on the right side is going to die. But the flank on the left side, along with the force in the middle, are kind of converging on that expo. And now you have nothing but trash on the left, so that flank is going to survive. And then you just have a couple of splash defenses to deal with on the back end. But they're Town Hall 10 splash defenses, and these troops are going to get through just fine. Now again, just remember the steps here, okay? As long as you get good value for your lightning, you should be just fine. And remember to get as much extra value as possible. Not just defenses, but even the trash buildings, okay? You want to make the chances of a time fill as low as possible. And before you practice, make sure you get step 2 right as well. This part requires a little bit of skill, okay? Remember to say it out loud, okay? Golems, witches, then your wrecker and heroes, in that order, okay? And you need to drop those fast. Golems to make sure your first deployed witches don't die. Witches to get the skeletons spawned as soon as possible, and then obviously your wrecker and your heroes go next. And then 3 is very versatile, especially if there is a single inferno in the base. Now, if there is a second single inferno, then I recommend to you Frozen Witches, which I will link both in the top right corner and in the end of this video. So remember, if you did like this video, if it helped you in any way, then go ahead and hit like. If you want to see more guides like this, then hit subscribe. And if you don't, do it anyway, or else I'll put a turd in your pillowcase. I'm serious. Just hit the buttons, okay? I had goat curry last night. You don't want this steam.